think as human beings, everybody has a natural gift and a natural passion, but then you go outside and you get influenced and you feel pressure.
Double up, 3 or 4 times, I ain't telling no lies, I just run it up. Never let a hard time humble us. Double up, I ain't telling no lies, I just, I ain't telling no lies, I just
5, 4, 3, 2, that's time. I got to.
You know, I read one time, like, would you rather be at war with yourself and at peace with the world? Or at peace with yourself and at war with the world?
Turn 7 to a 14, 14 to a whole thing. Lord knows it's a cold game. Switched up on you, man.
It's kind of tough, right? Gotta stay hydrated. So there's 2 ways to create a sequence, right? One way is by capturing things as you're doing them on the spot and kind of piecing them together in an edit. The other way is planning every shot via storyboard and creating an organized sequence. Now, when I'm doing client work, I tend to storyboard a lot of the shots and transitions, especially if there's paid projects. And today I'm going to show you my process on how to do it. So let's get into it. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Teddy. I am a cinematographer and founder of Captured by Culture Films. And I'm creating this series for anyone who wants to learn video, whether you want to get better at it as a paid skill or just get better at creating content for your social media. A lot of my inspiration comes from music. So I listen to a lot of different R&B and hip hop tracks, and a lot of shot ideas and pre-planning comes from the songs I listen to on a regular day basis. Oftentimes for other people, inspiration comes in different places. Like for me, sometimes I'll see a reel that's on Instagram that I'll possibly save and try to recreate later. Oftentimes I may watch a movie and I may be inspired to create a sequence around a movie. All in all, sequences should tell some sort of story, and how you compose them is usually what makes it stand out. Now, what is composition? Now, composition, simply put, is your arrangement of elements in an image. It could be an object, it could be a person, a bunch of different things. Either way, it's good to make a habit of saving and creating shots in videos that are aesthetically pleasing to you as a creator. Generally, I try to replicate shots in similar styles of mine in my videography. But for this particular video, I came across a post for Nipsey Hussle, who's a late artist, music artist, and I kind of like the tone and the message of his music, so I decided to recreate a cinematic sequence based on that. Now, why is composition important? Well, while you may not be trying to shoot a motion picture, you possibly want to learn this skill of composition, because eventually you're going to create good habits that you can use towards the projects you decide to make in whatever content you create on social media. Even when I shoot live events, I find myself naturally framing subjects in a way that makes it easier for me to create sequences because all the shots favor similar composition. But what if you're not shooting an event? How do you find inspiration for creating content? Right? So in my case, I usually start with music, right? And music choice is usually the foundation for most of the edits that I put together. Now, I often find the tone and pace of sequences by listening to music. It may not be the song I'm going to choose for the overall sequence. However, listening to a song that I like on repeat kind of helps me frame the shots that I want to put in that particular sequence. Now, oftentimes I'm out and about and ideas come to me on the fly. So I usually write those down in whatever notes app I have. If you have Google Docs, that's a good place to put all of your shot ideas. One quick tip I do recommend is that if you do hear a song while you're out and about, use the Shazam app to capture it and eventually listen to it on repeat. You can later swap out that song, like I said, for another song, but at least it gives you a rough idea on the type of sequence you want to create. all right? What I also do too is I create a playlist of all the tracks that I want to eventually film. And even if I don't use each individual track, at least I have a list of different tracks that can help motivate me and give me different inspirational ideas. Now, I know ideally I want to shoot at least 3 different locations. For this particular edit, we're gonna start at my office. Then we're gonna get shots of me commuting to the next location. And then last, me at the final destination doing an act of some sort. So I try to plan 5 shots at each location and then 1 transitional shot to take me from one spot to the other. If you haven't saw my video on transitions, please check it out. It gives you about 9 creative ways to transition from one location to another. If you're still trying to plan the shots, I'm not the best artist. So typically what I'll do is I'll write down each shot based on whether I want it to be a tight, wide, or a medium shot. I'll list them all in a Google Doc or a notes app, and then eventually I use an app known as FrameSet to actually get the ideas of what the shot is going to look like. This particular app has a bunch of references from movies and shows, so it's a good place to start off from if you at least have an idea of what you want to shoot. It can actually give you a visual screenshot that you can use and save it along with your particular shot that you're deciding to make. Now, what's the best focal length to choose when you're trying to create a cinematic sequence? There's a couple of different resources that I use to pick the best focal length for my shots. It's the Magic ARRI Viewfinder app. Shout outs to YC Imaging for putting me on game. I do recommend if you have a smartphone to explore whatever lenses you already have on there. Usually there's a wide, an extra wide, and maybe a tight focal length. We do have the luxury of having a zoom lens, a 24 to 70 millimeter is probably honestly all you really need. If you happen to have access to prime lenses, such as 85 millimeter, a 50 millimeter, 35 or 24 millimeter, that's even better. But most cameras have wide, ultra wide, and tight lenses. So that's a good starting point if you're just practicing cinematography. Overall, you want to get the framing right before you bring any of your gear to set up. Speaking of gear, what should you use when capturing your shots? Here's my personal list. First off, you need a DSLR camera or a smartphone, particularly with a zoom lens, or if you're able to have a prime lens, I say the 24 and 85 millimeter are probably all the lenses you're gonna need. You need a tripod or a monopod with a ball head mount. I personally like a monopod because it allows me to get more creative shots in tight spaces. And then last but not least, you need a light source. I personally use this Nanlite Pavo tube. It's small. It actually has a pretty good range and battery life, and I can mount it on anything that's metal wherever I'm located. So it's pretty convenient. I would invest in that if you don't already have one. And lastly but not least, if you're going to be capturing dialogue, a wireless lav mic such as the Rode mic is probably a good place to start. And as long as you have those, that's a good foundation to start off and capture the shots you want to get for your sequence. Now, after capturing and dumping all of your footage, sifting and sorting through all the footage that you have, I use the essential workflow to sift and select and organize my shots. The reason why is because I already have an idea of what the shots I'm going to be using, so it's easy for me to look through those select shots and pick the best of the best and put them on my timeline. Now, in each individual shot, I try to incorporate one of the composition rules as guidelines, such as leading lines, the rule of thirds, filling the frame, isolating the subject with space, and using depth. Usually when you're composing your shot list, other ideas come on the spot, and that's the best part of starting with a list. You can try different looks to accomplish pretty much different visions of your actual sequence. The best part is getting creative with it and learning what works best for you. Now, cutting the music is an essential part because you have to bring together your sequence with some form of undertone, otherwise called a music bed. Short form content lasts for about 30 seconds to 1.5 minutes. And most music tracks are more than 2 minutes. So I usually try to cut my music one of 3 ways. The first way is either I'll try to find the section of the track that I want to end on, and I work my way back from that. So if it's a 1 minute cue, I'll end my track on that 1 minute and fade in or start my sequence from a hit. An alternative way that you can do this is by starting the track off at the very beginning and using the remix tool to condense the track. Adobe essentially plays with different sections and it uses AI to actually condense the track. So this may work for you with your flow. The third option, which I find to be most customized, is by using an instrumental track or its stems. I'll mark the beats on the music cue at the beginning, middle, and the end so I can eventually trim each section. The trick I use to match the cuts is extending out the cues on different layers and playing both tracks simultaneously. If I can hear both beats together, I then fade the tracks into one another. Tweak this until I can play the track over and over and not notice the transition. This does take more time, however, the benefit is that I have more control over the pace of my edit. Now, if you're having a hard time finding an instrumental online for free, I tend to purchase most of my music from a reputable site like iTunes, and I gift the song to myself. After that, I download it to my library and then I upload it to a vocal removal app. Now, there's so many different sites that you can use to remove vocals from a music track. I think CapCut has some feature that you can actually remove vocals from any video. Another way to do it for free is vocalremover.org. And then a paid alternative is Lalo.ai, which is the one I use and I prefer the most. Now, if you're deciding to keep the lyrics, you can layer both tracks in Premiere and cut between the parts where you want the lyrics to come out. I usually opt to keep the instrumental and find dialogue to go over it to convey the tone I want to achieve in my sequence. If you can't find specific dialogue for the edit, you can always record your own voice, use AI, or even hire a voice actor to read a script. Lastly, some key points I'd like to mention. If you capture yourself in these sequences, make sure you use keyframing to essentially make your shots more engaging. You can add a subtle push in, maybe pans. You just want to break the static shots in your sequence. Second, I would try one of the 5 composition tips I shared at the beginning of the video. I also shared the settings of compositions so that you have an idea of how to attain those specific shots. And most importantly, try to have fun when creating. Don't really get hung up on whether someone likes your content or not. Like, at the end of the day, no one really cares. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's about the journey and trying new things and learning from your mistakes and eventually developing your own style. You know, learn the rules first. Then when you become more confident, you can break them. If I had stopped learning videography at my first failed project, I never would have had an opportunity to capture so many special moments and meet so many clients that value my work. Truthfully, maybe making money professionally is not the end goal for you. Maybe you just want to learn how to make compelling content for your Instagram, or maybe document a milestone of your life in a cinematic way. The point is just keep practicing, enjoy the process, and you'll never know what other opportunities will come from you developing this skill of videography. You know? And if you're interested in learning an in-depth editing workflow of the sequence that I just shared, you can leave a comment below and then I'll make sure to put that on the next video that I upload to YouTube. At the end of the day, if you quit, you're guaranteed never to succeed. So as long as you focus on you and getting better at this craft, that's all that really matters. All right? So until next time, peace.
All black, fire gold chains, young rich, bossed up on his own, man.